Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio. So today, I am showing you another exciting new card from the Pokemon Sun and Moon expansion. It is Poliwrath. Poliwrath isn't particularly good, but he might be viable because of a card that was released in the Pokemon Sun and Moon Strengthening Expansion Pack in Japan. It is Politoed. Now, there is a lot to like about Politoed, ladies and gentlemen. He's water, so he's hitting for weakness on Incineroar and Volcanion. Now, he is weak to grass, which does mean that Lurantis will hit him for weakness, unlike Sudowoodo, who I sillily said was weak to grass when he's clearly weak to water. It's right there on the card. Grass weakness for Politoed, not particularly great. Being a water Pokemon means you can use Splash Energy, so if he gets knocked out, you get to keep all the Pokemon cards, and actually, this is very good, because we're going to be using a whole bunch of 1 or 0 energy attacks here, so actually being able to recover these cards when they get knocked out for just this 1 Splash Energy, pretty gosh darn good. Grass also give access to Rough Seas, meaning you can heal 30 damage per turn from all of your water Pokemon, and we're going to be talking about water Pokemon here. And if you're in the expanded format, we do have Archie's Ace in the Hole. That's a supporter card that allows you to, if it's the only card in your hand, play it down, draw 5 cards, and then put any water Pokemon on your bench, even if they're a stage 2, like Politoed, can go straight onto your bench. And a retreat cost of 1 is very nice because we're going to be mainly using here the 1 energy attack. So if we can use a 1 energy attack and then retreat using that same energy, there is a good bonus. Now very quickly, the second attack, 100 damage for water, double colourless, so you can use double colourless energy. You may shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. You do 100 damage. Now this is not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. This attack has its uses. But let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. This is a last prize or prize denial or he's about to get KO'd, let's get him off the field kind of attack. It's not an every turn kind of attack. Although with the current translation we have, this isn't like Shaman where you have to put it into your hand. You may shuffle him into your deck, but you don't have to. But really here, it's the first attack roll call that's getting us very excited. Search your deck for a Poliwag, Poliwhirl, and Poliwrath, and put them onto your bench. This is spectacular. It means you have a Poliwhirl, which you can evolve to a Politoed or a Poliwrath the following turn. Remember that Poliwhirl can evolve into either. And we've got a Poliwrath already down on the field, and a Poliwag as well, just because, I don't know, could be fun. I am a big fan of this, ladies and gentlemen. I really like this. It smacks mostly here of the water duplicates attack that Frogadier has. Now, I know that Frogadier is a stage 1 and Politoed's a stage 2. Of course, you can use Rare Candy to get him out turn 2. But the fact that you can get the stage 2, and because you're putting the Poliwhirl onto your bench now, at the beginning of your next turn, he'll be on the bench, so he can evolve up straight away. So you use Politoed, and then you can get 2 stage 2s on the second turn, or on the next turn, straight away. This is very nice indeed. And you could even here, because Politoed really is you kind of want to use this attack once and then get rid of it, you could even use Devolution Spray to switch him over. Now, if we have a look at the Poliwrath from Pokemon Sun and Moon, as I promised you earlier, he's fine. 1 water energy, 30 damage plus confusion is alright. Water double colourless, 80 damage. If they're affected by a special condition, it does 80 more damage. Then remove all special conditions. So one trick you could do here in Expanded is to play your Hypnotoxic Laser. You're doing 160. Now the poison will never kick in because they'll be healed, but, you know, could be fun. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stage 1s you could use, like, for instance, Hypno to put them asleep and then hit 160 and they wake up. But it's an alright attack. I feel like the first attack doesn't do enough damage, and the second attack is a little bit expensive for my liking. Now, if it was just this Politoed and this Poliwrath, I'd be going, meh, it's not terrible. But the thing is, we have other cards, ladies and gentlemen. We have a Politoed from Furious Fist now. Furious Fist Politoed is, of course, only legal in Expanded, but he's got the ability King's Song. Ignore all colourless energy in the attack cost of each of your Poliwag, Poliwhirl and Poliwrath's attacks. You still have to pay the full Politoed attack cost, but of course we're only really using the first one there. So I would be a fan here of Devolution Spray one Politoed into the other, or of course you can just use the Poliwhirl that you got out using first Politoed's attack and evolve into second Politoed, by which I mean this one from Furious Fist. Now, it is an ability, so it will get turned off by Garbodor and Hex Maniac, but it is on a Stage 2, not a basic, so Silent Lab and Alolan Muck will not turn off. And now we've got access to some much better attacks, because we've got the Furious Fist Polys. Poliwag for now 0 energy, does 20 damage, and they're confused, and they can't retreat. On a basic Pokemon, that's pretty good. And don't forget, you'll be searching this Poliwag out using Politoed number 1, the Sun and Moon Strengthening Expansion Pack Politoed. So, straight away, even if you don't have any energy, 20 plus confusion, plus your opponent can't retreat next turn. And we've often talked about cards like Beware and Gabite that will stop your opponent retreating and how good they could be. Poliwhirl for 0 energy does 50 damage, but if they've got any damage counters on them already, it does 100 damage. And Poliwrath, this is the Poliwrath from Furious Fists, does 60 damage and 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. That is very, very nice indeed. And don't forget, we could go back to the Sun and Moon Poliwrath here, and for 1 water energy now, we can do Wake Up Slap for 80 damage, or 160 if they're affected by a special condition. Given that you're going to be playing 4 Poliwag, 4 Poliwhirl, 4 Poliwrath, / Politoed, you don't really want to be playing 1/1 Hypno lines here. You want to be using Hypnotoxic Laser to be able to hit for 160 damage for 1 water energy. Now, the big problem I've got with this is we've had this Poliwag, Whirl, Wrath, Toad combination since Furious Fist, and it's never been particularly good, but it's always been kind of slow. Here, with this Politoed from the Sun and Moon Strengthening Expansion Pack, you get to basically have 1 Stage 2, and then you're basically set up. Because on the turn after you use Politoed's attack, you just need one of the Furious Fist Politoed to evolve, and then you've got the ability. You've already got the Poliwrath out to be attacking with, and you've then got a Poliwag that you can either attack with, or you can start evolving, or whatever. And of course, you've got the option to use Devolution Spray to switch Politoed for something else. Do remember that the Furious Fist Politoed does not lower the attack cost of Politoed, so the Politoed from the Sun and Moon Strengthening Expansion Pack will not be able to hit 100 for 1 energy. You really don't want to be attacking with him. I don't think this is going to be amazing, but I think this is a fun deck. This is a nice beginner deck. This is a nice take it to league deck. But make no mistake about this, ladies and gentlemen. If you can set this up consistently, if you can get the Politoed attack and then the ability Politoed on the bench, you are then hitting 60 damage plus 30 to the bench, 0 energy on 140 HP Pokemon that can heal with Rough Seas. You're hitting 100 damage for 0 energy on a Stage 1. 20 plus Confusion plus you stop retreat on a basic, all for 0 energy. There is a mountain of potential here. Maybe it's a little bit too slow, but if you can rock with just the ability here, you don't need more than a few water energy to use the Sun and Moon Politoed attack. However, if you are ability locked, 30 plus Confusion on the Sun and Moon Poliwrath, it's not amazing, but it's far from the worst attack I've ever seen. Let's give between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. Not an amazing deck, but a deck with a whole bunch of potential that if you play against it and it sets up, you could get rolled, but I fear that more often than not, it will fail to set up. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen, there is a comment section, go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. It would make me very happy if you'd be kind kind enough to use them both, you can follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.